Greetings, I hope you're good and well. I'm doing a book review today for The Rats by James Herbert. This book was published in 1974, which was half a century ago. Pretty long time. It's a horror novel, and as horror novels go, this one has quite a strong premise. It's about an infestation of giant rats that invade London. The story follows a man called Harris, who's an art teacher. He was born in East London. He teaches in a school in East London, and as he goes about his daily routine, he notices lots of rats here and there. He goes to the London Underground and gets on the tube, and he sees hundreds of rats. He goes to school one day and rats are in his school attacking the students. And due to his knowledge of East London, he's asked to join a governmental rescue team. And that's when serious carnage begins to unfold. For me, there are several elements that make a good book. You've got the storyline, of course, and you've got characters. But an important factor is the prose. And the prose in this book is decent and it's well edited. But it came across as a little bit amateur, a little bit stiff. It kind of lacked a certain X factor. It's lucid, the storyline is easy to follow, but I'm tempted to say because it's so old, the prose, it doesn't really jump out at you, but it's not that. There are some books from the 1970s that have decent prose. It's got a little bit of an amateur feel, and it came across as a little bit stiff in parts. The characters are semi-believable. The dialogue is a bit two-dimensional, and it's got this amateur feel. And also, especially at the beginning of the book, certain peripheral characters are described in unnecessary detail. Like right at the start of the book, you've got this gay salesman, and pages and pages are devoted to this character, and you learn all about the background of this character, his job and his kind of social life. And then 2 pages on, he gets killed by a rat and you don't hear of him ever again. And also you've got this kind of religious tearaway woman, and you learn all about her childhood and her past and what happens to her. And then she gets killed by a giant rat, and it seems completely inconsequential. And again, that adds to this amateur feel of the book. It's the first, I've never read a James Herbert book before this one, but my first impressions were quite amateur. You know, like if somebody writes a debut novel and they haven't got a strong grasp of story arcs or anything, they tend to write clunky stories, and they pay loads and loads of attention to details that you shouldn't really pay attention to. I kind of got that vibe throughout the first half of this book, at least. The setting in this book is good. James Herbert was from East London. I think he grew up and lived in East London, and the book is based in East London, so that the settings are described very well. His knowledge of London shines through the book. There's a scene in a tube station, and the streets of London are described very well. It's dated now, it's set in the 70s. London nowadays is a very different place to what it was in the 70s. Could even say it's unrecognisable, it's like a different place altogether, but the 70s London is described pretty well in this book. And the pacing is good. It's a short book. It's about 200 pages long, and I finished this book in 2 days. I sometimes claim that I'm a slow reader. I'm not sure about that anymore. I'm slowish, but I tend to read books in about 2 weeks or so, even quite big books. So maybe I should give myself a bit more credit. I'm quite a slow reader, but I finished this book in 2 days. So that tells me that either the pacing is pretty good or the book is short. One of the two. Thank you for making it to the halfway point of this video. This is a quick message to let you know that I have a range of horror and sci-fi horror books available and most of them are free. If you enjoy my videos, you might also enjoy my stories. And if you want to receive exclusive content relating to the world of books and horror, consider joining my mailing list. You'll even get 2 free audiobooks for doing so. Finally, if you want to support my work, you can make a donation to my PayPal tip jar. All the links are below. Thank you. Now back to the video. I almost DNF'd this book halfway through. It was good, but not great. It was quite interesting, but it didn't grip me that much. The tube station scene was okay, but it didn't scare me. And there was another scene where the rats invade Harris's school, and there's this big, it turns into a kind of action scene where they have to kind of lock all the doors and stop the rats from getting into the school and killing the students. It should be an exciting, riveting scene, but it didn't really grip me that well. And I almost put it down and DNF'd it. But then something quite rare happened. It redeemed itself in like the last third of the book. And that is rare because usually, generally speaking, if a book is good, you know that it's good right from the start and it stays good all the way through. If a book is mediocre throughout the first half or throughout the first 2/3, generally speaking, it's going to be mediocre for the last third as well. It's very rare for a book to kind of pick itself up and do a 180 turn right at the end, but this book actually did that, and it's quite rare. At the end of the book, there were the rat descriptions began to get quite riveting and scary. There's a zoo scene that kind of stands out, that the rats invest London Zoo and they start terrorizing the animals like the giraffes and the gorillas and stuff, and the gorillas have to deal with the rats, and there's like a leopard in there. That it is quite good because it kind of, you know, rats are part of the animal kingdom, but these rats are free and wild, whereas the zoo animals are not domesticated, they're captive. And so this showdown was quite interesting in that sense. And without, no spoilers here, but at the end, the rats invade this house, like this cottage house, and it goes a bit Clive Barker at the end. In a Clive Barker novel, you get these grotesque mutated animals, and at the end of this book, this is not a supernatural book, but the descriptions at the end of this book get a bit, they come across as quite mutated, on the verge of being supernatural. And it did get a bit scary and disturbing, so it did pick itself up at the end. The Rats is a very British novel. Most of the novels I read are American. I don't know why, but I usually read American books, but this book is very English. And some of the slang words in this book were like a blast from the past for me. The main one being snogging. The word snogging is in this book, and I hadn't heard that word for years and years, since I was a teenager. There's a scene in this book where 2 characters are kissing each other, and James Herbert uses the word snogging. They were snogging each other. It kind of reminded me of being a teenager in London. Did I like this book? I wouldn't recommend reading it, really. It wasn't that scary. It picked itself up at the end. I enjoyed the last third of the book, but I don't think I'm going to read another James Herbert book after reading this one. I gave the book 3 stars on Goodreads. 3 stars is not that good. So I didn't enjoy it that much. I recently read Danse Macabre by Stephen King, and he raves about James Herbert in that book. He praises James Herbert, but this book came across as quite amateur, so I wouldn't actually recommend it. I do find rats quite disturbing. I haven't got a phobia about them, but I don't like being around them. And I happen to live in a part of the world where rats are on every street corner. So this book should have scared me a lot more than what it did. I'm going to leave you today with some rat related facts. The largest rat on record, the largest living rat that anybody has ever seen was found in Papua New Guinea in 2009. It's called the Basavi woolly rat, and it measured 32 inches including the tail, which is quite big. Here are some photos of rats in London from 2015, 2016. Sometimes camera angles can be quite deceiving, but either way, they're quite big. And scientists have discovered a bull-sized rat in South America. It lived 2 to 4 million years ago. It weighed 1 ton. It was the size of a bull, and the skull was found in 2008. I won't even try to pronounce the scientific name. But there you go. Don't bother reading it. It wasn't that good. Thanks very much for watching. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another book review. In the meantime, try to have a good day on this rat-infested, germ-infested, filthy piece of rock we call Earth. Lots of literary love. Goodbye.